Well, let's see what happens this week. I've been told that there's a lag in our voices, and I hope that's not the case. I seem to have an internet connection. You seem to have an internet connection. So we're going to have to find a cat to produce the show because the dog didn't work.
He quit. My
The dog
makeup team
quit.
quit too.
The dog quit. You're almost quit. It wouldn't be the right stuff unless we were running
No.
around going crazy.
I just
Uh,
will not shower until 7 o'clock because that's exactly what happened to me today.
well, guess what, Jen? With everything that's going on in your life, in my life, guess what time it is now?
Time for all four of our viewers.
So testing, testing. I hope everybody could hear us. Put your comments up if you can. And if anything goes wrong with the sound, definitely, tell us about it because we are on a shoestring budget. As a matter of fact, we have to
We're on a
pay.
budget. We have zero budget.
We have a negative budget.
Negative.
And now with Biden in office and the economy, we have even less of a budget.
It actually cost me money to do this. So
So there you go. We're taking money out of our pockets to entertain you, our tens and tens of viewers, and welcome back on this Tuesday. Hey, Jen, you know what? Yesterday, well, Sunday was Father's Day, but it was Juneteenth.
I know.
It was Juneteenth. And you know what? Happy Juneteenth to everybody because guess what? Without us Republicans, there would never have been a Juneteenth. And so we should all be very proud that we were on the right side of history. And, everybody got to celebrate Juneteenth
I
yesterday.
didn't. I went to work
You
Monday.
went to work.
Wait a minute. She doesn't take off for Christmas, that lady.
Margie's with us. Hey, Margie, how you doing? It's good to see you. Glad to have you with us. So today, Jen, well, let me ask you, how was your week?
Oh, it was lovely. Same shit every week, except I got a ticket. My first parking ticket just now. So
Parking ticket,
yeah.
not a red light or speed camera.
No, I pulled up in front to get a water by your house on Victory by Manor, and it was jam packed. And I just wanted to run in, and I did. And it was like that troll was hiding behind my car. And I came out, mind you, I have the plaque in my window, I have my NYPD hat on, and he looks at me and goes, "Oh, too late."
Too late.
I'm like, too late. He goes, "You should know better." I go, "You should know better." $115, and they didn't have water. So,
Well, it used to be that you could go down and fight it, and they would reduce it, but now they make you pay the full
really? Oh no, I'm fighting it.
full amounts of money. Yes, Margie, I did get the picture of your son. Sam sent it to me. He looks fantastic, and he's supporting a good guy in Sam Parazola for assembly. So, both the guys running for assembly on the Republican lines are great. Sam is a friend, and Sam is a good guy. And what I love about Sam is that he is the education guy. Paul is a former police officer, and we certainly support and love Paul. But Sam has a real grip on education. And as a matter of fact, Jen, that's what our show is about tonight.
Oh.
It is about the new bill in Congress called Civics Secures Democracy. Did you hear about it?
Do you really think I heard about that?
Well, I'm hoping that our parents out there and grandparents have heard it. It's a bill that was introduced in 2021, and now it's representing itself. The idea is to give billions of dollars to not-for-profits and other entities to teach civics to our students. So great idea, right? Because they stopped teaching civics in school. So we want kids to know about American history and about voting and about democracy in America, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Here's the problem with the bill. the bill wants to actually pay money to not-for-profit organizations to research America's history. So America's history, which we thought was written, is we have to have research done on it before we can present civics lessons to kids. And
And who's doing
it's
the research?
well, that's a good question. Stan Lowe says very interesting, and that's the. I'm guessing that's about the bill.
Meanwhile,
Well,
they cut the budget $230 million from the New York Board of Ed. So
well, this is a national bill, and it basically it will make national policy of what should be taught in civics. The thing is, as we all know, over time, our history is being regularly rewritten and changed. And Margie, I'm glad you're with us because I know you have the Native American perspective on things, and it's things that we should absolutely know about. But we know about Christopher Columbus. We know that they've been rewriting history on so many things. So tonight I thought that I would show you some clips, Jennifer, of videos out there or lessons out there about how our history, certain groups say that our history is wrong and that it has a different spin on it. And then I wanted to talk about what they might omit or keep when teaching about civics. So let's
Columbus is going to be Christine. You wore a dress.
Okay. Well, wait, let's see. A Facebook user is the name. Nonprofits are used to scam taxpayer funds way too much. They need oversight. Well, they do have oversight, but it's limited oversight. But once again, when you start to put money in the hands of not-for-profit organizations, you have to look at what the goal of the nonprofit organization is, right? So why are we leaving the determination of what our history is to nonprofit organizations instead of to I don't know, textbooks,
Books that were written. How people can't even relay a message through Messenger on Facebook properly when there's two people involved. How are they going to go back and question people that have been dead for 300-400 years?
Well, that's the thing. And that's what I took exception with the Christopher Columbus revisionist history, because what they did was they took letters that, Christopher Columbus wrote a diary and there was only two copies. One was with Queen Isabella and the other one was with Christopher's family. But there was a doctor who was also sent on the voyage with Columbus who did not like Columbus. He thought Columbus was too full of himself. And I'm sure he probably was, because he became a hero for discovering a trade route to the Orient and for navigating the globe. And so there were people that hated him, just like today. Nothing has changed. And that doctor wrote lots of things, and Christopher Columbus was brought up on charges of being cruel and inhuman. And then later he was found not to be true. And so he was
like Trump.
pardoned. So what's that?
Like Trump.
Yeah, kind of like Trump. Facebook user, too many nonprofits also being used as fronts for communist and Marxist propaganda. Yeah, that's true. Hi, ladies. What is being taught now? So well, we don't know, Lucille, what's being taught now. That's the whole thing. There's billions of dollars, and it's going to go to researching our history to create civics lessons for kids. Now, originally, this bill included a mandate to teach the 1619 Project and other things that, and CRT and other things that parents railed against. But now it's coming back in a different iteration. And now they're saying, oh, we'll leave it to the not-for-profits to tell us about America. Don't know why my name isn't showing. Oh, it's Brenda Black. Brenda, they must be banning you, baby, because I know they're shadow banning me. All right, so let's start at the beginning. The beginning is Christopher Columbus. And so this is according to what's out there now, what really happened with Christopher Columbus. I didn't take the whole 10-minute lesson, but I took the gist of it to show to you. Watch, Jen.
Children in the United States learn that Christopher Columbus discovered America in 1492. But since there were already millions of people living on the American continents when he arrived, what is Columbus's real importance in history? The Nina, Pinta, and Santa Maria set sail on August 3, 1492. Columbus was hungry for gold to bring back to Spain. He wandered around searching for a large amount of gold until the Santa Maria crashed into a reef on Hispaniola. Columbus left 39 men at the site to build a colony. He promised he would return for them and sailed back to Spain. When he arrived in Europe, Columbus was famous. He brought back many things to show the Spanish king and queen, including Taínos he had kidnapped. But he did not bring enough gold, so Ferdinand and Isabella equipped Columbus with 17 ships for his second voyage, and named him governor of all the lands he discovered. When the fleet arrived at Hispaniola, they found out that the 39 men who were left there to build a colony had been killed by a local chief. They also found out the same chief had lots of gold on his land. Columbus led a crew into his territory and found a gold quarry. The chief was angered by the arrogance of these invaders, and soon fighting broke out. To intimidate the chief, Columbus captured 3 of his captains and beheaded them in public. This enraged the Taínos and disturbed many of the Spanish. To make things worse, there was soon no gold left to mine. Columbus sent letters back to Spain on a ship and exaggerated the amount of gold that was found. To produce more profit for the king and queen, Columbus suggested starting a slave trade. Without waiting for a response, he seized over 500 natives and sent them to Spain. Most of the remaining natives fought against this injustice, so Columbus unleashed terror on them. Once defeated, they were forced to pay tributes of gold to the Spanish. It was worse than slavery. People who didn't find enough were punished brutally. During the first few years of the tribute system, 50,000 natives died. We have learned that Columbus was ambitious, intelligent, and courageous, but he was no hero.
Yeah. So, was that true? Probably. Putting it in context, that Columbus settled this land, and then it actually was taken from the Native Americans, the people that were here already, the actual indigenous people, and war ensued. Columbus's guys, 39 of them massacred. He in turn used brute force and his ships to overtake the native people. But the question is, would it do we want to go back in history and unwind and not have had that trade route discovered, not have proved that the world was not flat and it was indeed round, not have been able to chart courses and navigate the oceans? Would the world have been better if Christopher Columbus was not sent on the mission and everything? I mean, listen, brute force we see it right now in Ukraine.
I was just going to say he's the Putin of 1450.
Yeah, okay. And Isabella and Ferdinand were really the Putin or the Xi of the 15th century. So when we used to have that song, 1492, Columbus sailed the blue, and young kids would praise him, and we as Americans would praise him for discovering America. We're not supposed to do that anymore. We're supposed to take everything out of context and out of the time frame and say, take pity on the original inhabitants of this land. But
that's not how taking over land goes.
And guess what? Those tribes would massacre each other, and also they would take each other as slaves.
Well, what about everything that's going on now? Are we going to revisit that in a few hundred years? Like everyone who's robbing people, BLM burning the cities down. For what reason? What are you getting?
And a little bit later in the program,
you're not trying to steal soil.
Yep. So a little bit later on in the program, we're going to talk about that. But, I get it that the history books, quote unquote, may have whitewashed some things because, quite frankly, back in the day when I was a kid, you didn't talk about certain things in public, in society. You didn't discuss certain things amongst people that weren't your family. Nowadays, we have commercials, very, very graphic commercials about toilet paper, about erectile dysfunction, about
That's something everyone should talk about. You don't want to fall down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, that's it. Thanksgiving permanently canceled. Lots of happy turkeys. Angela Ricca, watch this, Jen. Now, this is talking about Thanksgiving. This is, oh, wait, hold on a second. I'm having a hard time today. Let me just get this back. So talking about Thanksgiving, we even have some people who want to change the concept of Thanksgiving. And this is where Margie will weigh in. Yes, they did. There were many wars between native tribes, and to the winners goes the spoils. And that's Margie, and she's Lenape Indian, and she keeps the Native American culture alive for our school children. And that's the thing, I agree that we need to know the whole story, but we have to have that story in context.
But this just goes to show that everybody needs a trophy. They don't like the fact that somebody else got beaten.
They want, no, the thing is, Jennifer, and everybody watching, this is the elites that we've talked about on this program over and over again. These are the elites who are trying very, very hard to destroy America. And if they could destroy our history and make us feel bad about ourselves, then they can dismantle us. So this is what this is all about, destroying America. They don't want people coming here and being free. So this is the little game they play.
That's what I just said. Everybody you get something. Everyone's equal, and that's how it goes. Listen, you go.
Yeah, and what they get is shit, because the elites will always have the most. Take a look at this video about Thanksgiving.
When I think of Thanksgiving, what comes to mind is not thankfulness or a big turkey. What I think of is far more important and serious. Following the arrival of Christopher Columbus on the shores of America in 1492, a steady stream of white European families traveled across the Atlantic Ocean to settle in this new territory. At first, they were ill-equipped to handle the harsh realities of its wilderness and climate. But indigenous tribes fed them and taught them how to grow corn and other crops to live on the land. Then, everything took a turn for the worse. This is where the revisionist whitewashing in this story happens, because it was not a peaceful coexistence between Native American tribes and white colonial settlers. Empowered by their religious beliefs and a racist disdain for the indigenous tribes, white European settlers murdered and stole from the indigenous communities who had been thriving on this land for thousands of years and multiple generations. These colonial settlers destroyed indigenous cultures by eradicating them, and even sold captive tribal members off to slavery. This brutal and racist genocide continued throughout the expansion of the United States westward to the Pacific Ocean. 5-term governor of Plymouth Colony, William Bradford, described Native Americans as savage people who are cruel, barbarous, and most treacherous. At every level, the settlers were intent on vilifying and disempowering indigenous people. Thanksgiving has been whitewashed as a symbol of kind gratitude expressed by the white European settlers toward native tribes. This revisionist history only serves to silence the stories and voices of the millions of indigenous people who were slaughtered under a heartless and cruel colonialist agenda.
I find Thanksgiving to be a holiday where my uncle gets wasted, people fight. who punches who makes out with this homeless man. I don't know. I don't find it to be a very nice whitewashed holiday, but okay.
So we can get rid of Thanksgiving and every family,
No Thanksgiving for you. Over.
So this is, this is the kind of these are the kinds of videos that I'm sure we're going to see as part of the research of American history. Do we need to know it? Absolutely. But to call it racist at that time, and you know what, maybe that's the right word, but to act as if there wasn't racism between the Native Americans, between the English and the French and the Spanish and the Italians and the Dutch. I mean, to act as if the world was always kumbaya or should have always been kumbaya is, to me, pedantic, and it's ridiculous.
This is what happens when you let everyone smoke pot. 110%. This is what happens.
It's part of it. It's part of it.
Animals kill each other. If you go into the forest and you're a little skunk, you're going to get eaten by the lions. You're not supposed to be there. Flamingos get mauled by orangutans or apes or whatever the hell lives over there. They're not supposed to go near them. They're not supposed to go on their land.
Well, they are supposed. It's everybody's land, but it's the circle of life. Hi, Antonio. Antonio is joining us.
Everybody, as an animal, a mammal, or whatever, you try to dominate. You're there to dominate, to win, to be the king.
And that's human. That is the animal, and that's what we are, right? We're animals, and it's survival of the fittest, and the lion is the king of the jungle, and I mean, it's crazy. They say we whitewashed history, but we didn't. It's everything. The facts are there, but it's who's the storyteller, and we've had this conversation before. I mean, even the Bible, the storyteller.
It's a political comic book.
That video is not unbiased.
Medicaid to the Pilgrims, and everything would have been fine.
Yeah,
that's it.
So Brenda says that video is not unbiased history. It is twisting truths to push an anti-American and particularly an anti-white agenda. That is correct. Next, they are going after Saint Nick. That's true. Here's Margie. President Abraham Lincoln started the modern practice of National Thanksgiving holiday amidst the raging Civil War. President Abraham Lincoln issued a proclamation of Thanksgiving on October 3rd, 1863, 74 years to the day after President George Washington issued his first presidential Thanksgiving proclamation. Thank you, Margie, for that bit of history. So, you can look at that, I guess, in two ways, right? There was a struggle between the settlers and the indigenous people, but there was a proclamation and a recognition of the government that the indigenous people, who so many people were painting as savages, were kind and helped and were people that should be befriended. And it was a way of sending a message to honor the Native Americans. Margie goes on. What was the purpose of George Washington's Thanksgiving proclamation? In 1789, President George Washington issued a proclamation designating November 26th of that year as a national day of Thanksgiving to recognize the role of Providence in creating the new United States and the new federal Constitution. So this is what is likely to be taught in our new research civics in school. And this is why parents are crazed. And this is why many people are crazed, because again, we have to recognize that the person or the entity with the loudest voice and the ability to reach enough people will plant the story in the minds of the next generation. And as you rightly said, Jennifer, they're smoking pot. They're trying.
Well, not even that. Listen, I always stop and I think, like, okay, so the African Americans, yes, they did. as a white person in America, I am more privileged. I will say that. I do have more of a privilege. I totally recognize that. But everybody wants a kumbaya and they want this great life, but they want to take now the people. Like, we weren't around 400 years ago. We weren't around 1,000 years ago. We weren't there. We're here now. But they want to badger us and put us into the ground. And if you guys ever want to watch a movie that will open your eyes and get you to understand, John Travolta probably made his worst movie ever, but it's called White Man's Burden. Mm-hmm. And it's when the roles are reversed. Yeah. In America. And it's something that's eye-opening, and it's not something that I take lightly, but I also don't take the hatred. So now you want this country to all be one and unite, but you're literally throwing us under the bus and executing us for things that we were not around for.
Well, and it's they don't want the country to be one. That's the whole thing. They want to divide us, because if they divide us, they can conquer us. And Margie just said something, and she corrected me. So the proclamation had nothing to do with when the Native Americans sat with the colonists. It had to do Thanksgiving. The proclamation of Thanksgiving was to be thankful that we had discovered America and that we created a nation. Very good, Margie, and thank you. That's very useful. Lucille, most people don't give a damn about history. It's the start of the happy holidays.
Your tree goes up the next day.
Yeah. Peter Romanowski, landlord-tenant disputes around forever. All right, that's the intelligent level of our audience. That is funny. It's sad but funny. Yes, you're right. We were the tenants, they were the landlords.
It's too damn hot.
Oh my gosh, I can't. That was fantastic. Okay, so all right, you would think that, wait, hold on a second. Francine says, that's right, my family didn't come here till the 20th century.
Go first generation.
That's listen, but again, the goal, let's remember the goal, divide and conquer. If we fight amongst each other, if we hate ourselves, if we're not proud Americans, then it's easier for other countries to come in and to be more powerful than us. And as we're on the brink of making China the most powerful country on the planet. Taking
away our cars to give China business.
That's right. That's absolutely right. So you would think, though, right, that women's suffrage, right, the fight to get the vote for women would be something that all sides would applaud and actually agree upon. Now, just a quick blip, most of the women who and most of the people involved in the suffrage movement were also abolitionists. They were trying to get rid of slavery. But get this clip is amazing, where the new woke.
Is this with the topless ladies?
What's that?
Are they all marching topless?
No.
That's what
they were very violent. Let's get some.
Well, that is very violent. I didn't want to see them like that. They're disgusting. They weren't even fake nice boobs. They were like
they were violent. They were not prim and proper by any stretch of the imagination, because they were fighting for a cause, and we've seen it all throughout history, right? When you're fighting for a cause, things are ugly. But here's the thing. We have Mott and Katie Stanton. Elizabeth Cady Stanton, who were Lucretia Mott and Elizabeth Cady Stanton, who actually created the Declaration of Sentiments. In this video created by woke individuals, they have decided that they, even though they were abolitionists, they were racist. Watch this one. This one is amazing.
Here's what you need to know about women's suffrage. The U.S. Constitution was written in 1787. The nation's founding document didn't give many specifics on who could and could not vote, so the rules were largely left to the states, and most restricted the right to vote to white, land-owning men over the age of 21, who made up as little as 6% of the population. The framers of the Constitution and many of those that set the laws thereafter, in essence, considered women to be childlike, incapable of independent thought, and therefore not worthy of making the tough decision of which white man was elected to office. Fast forward to the early 1800s, and women began speaking up about how inequitable restricting the right to vote was. In 1848, a few Quaker women, outspoken in the movement to abolish slavery and involved in various movements, met up for tea and bonded over the trials and tribulations of being a woman in 19th century America. Months later, two of those early suffragettes, Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Lucretia Mott, organized the first women's rights convention in Seneca Falls, New York, and hundreds of people showed up. There, they created the Declaration of Sentiments, based on the Declaration of Independence, which listed their agenda for improving women's rights, including protecting gender equality, the right to an education, and of course, the ability to vote. But it wasn't all agreement and tea time.
After the Civil War, it would be racism that would cause one of the biggest divisions in the movement.
The 15th Amendment, introduced in 1869, would give African American men the right to vote regardless of race, color, or previous condition of servitude, though it said nothing of gender.
And Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Susan B. Anthony, two of the most famous suffragists of the 19th century, famously oppose the amendment, say unspeakably racist things against it, clearly displaying a kind of elitist and racial hierarchy, whereas Lucy Stone organizes a rival organization to support black men's voting and fight for women's vote, called the American Women's Suffrage Association. And a lot of those women of color just said, this white women's organizing doesn't speak to our needs, and we're going to go organize on our own.
I need to know who does that lady's hair. That's what I'm protesting. What is that?
That's the
Never have a nice haircut.
that's
Like
the
they
new
complain
Wall
so much. You think they complain at the salon when they cut their hair like that?
We got it, Peter. Landlord equals privilege. We got it. But I don't understand how they can invoke racism with women who were fighting to abolish slavery.
What goes on now? What are you talking about? It goes on all day long now. People
But I'm talking, we're going to go back to the 1920s and
course.
call these women who were fighting to abolish slavery, and they were going to call them racist because they said, wait, what? You're going to let black men only vote? Hell no. We want women to vote. And that somehow became unspeakable racism.
Maybe not drive, but you guys, we can vote. I'm kidding.
Gloria Johnson says, so tired of the bullshit being shoved down our throat. Well, Gloria, that's the whole reason for this show tonight, because the Civics Secures Democracy Act is being debated in Congress right now, and you could bet they're going to try and ram it through before January, when the House and the Senate, when all the Democrats and all the wokes lose their seats. And that's why I wanted to bring this to you, because I want you to see what we're doing here in America. Even our Congress people are being played as pawns by the elites to try to divide us, to try to get us to fight. And even there in the suffragette movement, of course there's always going to be division amongst groups. You tell me, in any party, in any political system, in any church, in any school system, tell me that everybody gets along.
You all went to
kumbaya.
high school. Everyone went to school.
No, we're going to go back and we're going to pull out words where they got pissed off that black men were getting the right to vote before women got the right to vote. And we're going to make it racist. These are the women that fought for slavery to be abolished. Oh, could it be that the reason that Cady Stanton and Mott are being singled out is because they were aligned with the Republicans? Possibly. But again, this bill is going to make sure that not-for-profits research our history and correct all the wrongs that have been going on. And it's like the further away from history we're going to now start to
It's like I can't find anything to back up my stupid comments, so let me go back a half a century. 500 years.
Yeah, and let's take it out of context and try and apply it in today's day and age. It's crazy. So for the Republicans and for most of America, for a lot of Americans, Ronald Reagan was a great president, right, Jen?
Yeah, my favorite.
Everybody loved Ronald Reagan. He, elected, even the Democrats in New York voted for Ronald Reagan. But guess what? They unearthed the tape recently of Ronald Reagan talking to Richard Nixon. Well, I'm going to let this speak for itself because I'm not defending it. I'm not anything, but I want you to hear the new story. And this came from PBS NewsHour. Watch this.
A recently unearthed audio recording of Ronald Reagan from 1971 has raised questions about the former president's views on race. Lisa Desjardins takes a closer look now at the comments made nearly 50 years ago and Reagan's complicated legacy.
In the early 1970s, Ronald Reagan was governor of California and already a national name in Republican politics. On the morning of October 26, 1971, Reagan called up President Nixon at the White House.
Hello, Mr. President. Hope I didn't get you out of bed. No, I'm...
Their 12-minute chat was captured on President Nixon's White House tapes and was released in full by the National Archives just last month. It includes Governor Reagan using a racist slur to describe a group of African diplomats at the United Nations.
Last night, I tell you, to watch that thing on television, as I did. Yeah. To see those monkeys from those African countries. Damn them, they're still uncomfortable wearing shoes.
Reagan was reacting to this UN session the day before, where the U.S. lost major votes over the rise of China and whether communist China should be seated as the official Chinese delegation. Beijing won with a coalition of nations that included many developing nations. The result led some, including the Tanzanian delegation, to burst into celebration. For historians, the audio of Reagan's reaction to that moment is a new data point.
It was not a great comment, but and I'm not going to justify it, but I am going to say this. He was pissed off that third world countries were helping China to get a seat at the United Nations table. So did he have a crystal ball? Did he understand that if China became a legitimate country and was taken off the third world list, that we would in America have a problem, that we around the world would have a problem? Maybe he was prophetic, but the fact that he is the one president that the Democrats and Republicans agreed upon, that the nation agreed was a great president. Suddenly, we unearth this tape and we show it to the world. Just happens to be now. So history rewritten.
Let's move past that one because that one.
So Margie says because China bought them. Yes, and they're doing it now too. A lot of African nations, a lot of third world countries are supporting China because they want the grain out of Ukraine that Russia is controlling. So once again, it's about global power. It's about the elite. It's about, and the one way that they can make a worldwide or a global economy is if they get rid of us, Americans. Those Americans with their pesky...
There are no more Americans. We're slowly dying.
Well, they're killing us. And we're killing ourselves because we're buying into this bullshit and not seeing through the fact that they're trying to turn us against each other. Peter, all right, what does Peter have to say? 17th Amendment to the United States Constitution put the kibosh on states and local rights and interests. Centralized K Street politics. Can anyone say Connecticut compromise? Centralized power. You got it, Peter. It is. That's the goal. And that's what we try and bring you here, ladies and gentlemen. We try to show you the marketing skills that they have to push against America, us, pesky Americans with their human rights, their equal rights, their high-paying jobs, their jobs, good pay, the freedom to be able to speak, to worship, to do all the things our founding fathers gave to us. But guess what? Damn well that they're never going to, in their research, you're never going to see one of these clips on their agenda. Watch this.
The Democratic Party prides itself on being inclusive and advocating for communities of color. But there was a time when racism was at the center of its policies. The Democratic Party began in the early 1800s under Andrew Jackson. It was founded on the belief that democracy should be for all men, not just the elites and landowners. Well, all white men, that is. The party was more than happy for slavery to continue, and it treated Native Americans with brutal contempt. As president, Jackson enforced one of the cruelest policies in American history when he signed the Indian Removal Act into law. White people wanted to settle on Native lands, so the Democratic government uprooted Native Americans from their homelands, forcing them to travel west. More than 5,000 natives died during this displacement, now known as the Trail of Tears. By the mid-1800s, a rift in the party emerged over a simple question: should the United States extend slavery to the Western territories? This issue broke the party into two groups: the Southern Democrats, who wanted to expand slavery, and the Northern Democrats, who said the states should decide. That led each side to offer their own candidate in the 1860 presidential election, which ultimately split their vote and allowed Abraham Lincoln, the candidate of the recently formed Republican Party, to win. And these first Republicans, they were against slavery. This, of course, led to the Civil War, which lasted from 1861 to 1865. Meanwhile, the Democrats labeled themselves as the white man's party, attacking the Republican Party as the party for the Negro. As they gained power in the South during Reconstruction, Southern Democrats embraced this mantra, creating the Black Codes. This set of laws kept white supremacy alive by limiting Black Americans' right to property and forcing them to work in low-wage jobs. In Mississippi, one law fined people for unlawfully assembling themselves. The Ku Klux Klan was founded during this time, with some of its members being Southern Democrats.
So this goes on for about 20 minutes, but I thought that it would be interesting to show this tonight, because you know damn well when they talk about white supremacy and they talk about, you know, keeping Black voters down, they always assign that to the Republicans. They're not going to tell the truth about the Democrat Party. Think that's it's going to make it into the research?
Not at all. It's only what they want to shove down your throat. That's it. Like they're doing now on social media. You're not allowed to speak your mind if they don't agree with it. If it doesn't fit their agenda, you get silenced.
That's it. So they unearthed this this clip, this audio recording of Ronald Reagan, but there's written documentation and video documentation of Joe Biden and his racist comments.
Our mayor.
Yeah, our mayor too. But do you think that Joe Biden is going to go down in history as a racist? Do you
No, he's just going to go down in history as someone who can't ride a bicycle.
So watch this compilation of Joe Biden and his racist friends.
Senator Biden, you and your campaign have had a number of occasions to correct or clarify things you've said relating to race, including your remarks about Senator Obama being, quote, clean and articulate, your comment about Indians working at 7-Eleven, and recently to the Washington Post, in which you spoke about race while describing disparities between schools in Washington, D.C. and Iowa. Do these gaffes or misunderstandings, or however you would characterize them, indicate you're uncomfortable talking about race, or are people just being too sensitive?
It may be possible, because I speak so bluntly, that people misunderstand, but no one who knows me in my state, no one who I've worked with in the United States Congress has ever wondered about my commitment to civil rights and civil liberties.
In a series of never-before-published letters reviewed by CNN, the strength of Biden's opposition to busing comes into sharper focus. On March 25, 1977, Biden wrote, "My bill strikes at the heart of the injustice of court-ordered busing. It prohibits the federal courts from disrupting our educational system." Biden sought and received support from Mississippi Senator James Eastland, the Democratic chairman of the Judiciary Committee and a leading symbol of Southern resistance to desegregation. He frequently spoke of blacks as, quote, an inferior race. On June 30th, 1977, Biden wrote, "Dear Mr. Chairman, I want you to know that I very much appreciate your help during this week's committee meeting in attempting to bring my anti-busing legislation to a vote." Then in 1978, Biden again asked Eastland to put his anti-busing bill before the full Senate, writing, "Your participation in floor debate would be welcomed."
Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids.
Well, we can bus everybody from every other country in here. I'm just going to use dementia.
Oh my God! How ironic! The man that was against busing is busing.
He's on flying them, busing them, horsing them, bicycling them, walking them.
Oh my God, Jen! I want you to be on the research team for our American history.
They'll let me on there. They'll let me up there for the Capitol in about 3 seconds. We're on HBO. Standing on the wall, fixing a fence.
Do you think, and what do you think? Now, JFK was the darling president of the Democrat Party, and he was one of America's most famous and loved presidents. And the reason he was famous and loved is because he was Catholic. It was the first time we had a Catholic president.
Cute.
Was that?
And he was cute.
And he was cute. So guess who was presiding, just in case anybody didn't know, as president when the Supreme Court took prayer out of school? JFK. So let's listen to JFK and hear what he had to say about the Supreme Court decision that actually turned into taking prayer from school. Watch this.
Asked his opinion of the Supreme Court decision banning prayer in schools, the president says,
"Well, I haven't seen the measures in the Congress, and you'd have to make a determination of what the language was and what the effect it would have on the First Amendment. The Supreme Court has made a judgment. A good many people obviously will disagree with it. Others will agree with it. But I think that it is important for us, if we're going to maintain our constitutional principle, that we support Supreme Court decisions even when we may not agree with them. In addition, we have in this case a very easy remedy, and that is to pray ourselves. And I would think that it would be a welcome reminder to every American family that we can pray a good deal more at home, we can attend our churches with a good deal more fidelity, and we can make the true meaning of prayer much more important in the lives of all of our children. That power is very much open to us. And I would hope that as a result of this decision that all American parents will intensify their efforts at home.
Okay, there we go. Sorry about that.
He was praying.
He was praying that he could get himself out of that pickle. That's for sure. I mean, he spoke around that, although I love that he said, you know, we need to accept the Supreme Court's decision and that parents should intensify their efforts at home. We need the common sense now. Parents, intensify your efforts at home. Do not let the government tell you what to do. And look who joined us. My mom. I love you, girls.
I love you. I'm not allowed to call you your mother anymore. She goes, why don't you call me your grandmother? Why do you say your mother?
Yeah. She's offended by that. She's woke.
Triggered.
She's woke now. What did he say? Poor kids versus white kids. You got that right, Angela. That's what he said. Margie says Republicans need to grow a pair and fight back, not just the politicians, but everyone. You're absolutely right, Margie. And it's not just Republicans. It's just common sense people. Tammy's with us. Happy Tuesday, Leticia. And you look beautiful tonight. Thank you, Tammy. You and your daughter look fabulous tonight. Thank you. And Gloria says double talk, right? Gloria, was that even, I mean, JFK, who was the straight shooter, that was double talk. He was praying for how the hell am I getting out of this? I mean, what do I say about this? But I liked his answer, and I wish that they'd play it for some of those people that are protesting in front of our Supreme Justice's house. Okay, so, and do you think do you think that they're going to teach about the Democrats who were leching on women, and were at the politicians who actually were subjecting women to sexual overtures after the Me Too movement? Here's a compilation for you.
As you know, in a deposition in January, I was asked questions about my relationship with Monica Lewinsky. While my answers were legally accurate, I did not volunteer information. Indeed, I did have a relationship with Ms. Lewinsky that was not appropriate.
Among those currently serving, Senator Al Franken and Representative John Conyers are the highest-profile Democrats to be accused of sexual misconduct. The accusations have raised some difficult questions on Capitol Hill. Can one case be deemed less serious than another? And what role should politics play in determining a lawmaker's future?
So how come during the whole Me Too situation, we didn't see that clip of Clinton talking to Monica Lewinsky over and over?
On our tax dollars. We paid for that. We paid for that cigar. We paid for that rendezvous. You're mad about paying for people coming over the border illegally? You bought the nicest Cuban that vagina was ever going to see. Just letting you all know.
Oh my God. I'm going to double time now because we only have 9 minutes left and we have a couple of clips left. So, Dr. Martin Luther King, who taught us all about peace and about peaceful protest in the civil rights movement. I have a juxtaposition clip between Dr. Martin Luther King fighting for his rights and what happened last summer. Watch this.
Gandhi, Dr. King, dramatized and defined the technique of nonviolence, and yet he also said that the only alternative to fear is violence, and that if that were the alternative, he would have to choose violence. Do you subscribe to that judgment of Gandhi, or would you disavow violence under any condition?
Well, I think I would have to somewhat interpret Gandhi at this point. I don't think he was setting forth violence as an alternative. I think he was emphasizing, or rather trying to refute an all too prevalent fallacy, and that is that the persons who use the method of nonviolence are actually the weak persons, persons who don't have the weapons of violence, persons who are afraid. And I think that is what Gandhi was attempting to refute. Now, in that instance, I would agree with Gandhi that if the only alternative to violence, to fear, is violence and vice versa, then I would say fight. But it isn't the only alternative. And that is one point that Gandhi was trying to bring out. It seems to me that there are three ways that oppressed people can deal with their oppression.
What are they, Dr. King?
Well, one is to rise up in open violence, in physical violence. And some persons have used that method, persons who have been oppressed. But I think the danger of that method is its futility. I feel that violence creates many more social problems than it solves.
More chaos on the streets of Portland as once again peaceful protests turned violent overnight, with federal agents unleashing a massive response. Both sides appeared to use leaf blowers, pushing tear gas toward each other, and seemingly lost in this escalating conflict.
The reason that we're out here is because Black Lives Matter, and the feds need to get out of town.
Hi, Felicia.
So when the researchers give us our civic lessons, are they going to, take these clips and play them side by side and say why, Dr. Martin Luther King, who believed in peaceful protest and kept it as peaceful as possible, got what he was seeking with the civil rights movement, but the whole George Floyd, Black Lives Matter movement is not catching on because... Yeah.
No, I was going to say we have massive statues of George Floyd. There aren't enough statues of MLK. When do you really see? I have never seen one.
That's true.
There should be statues everywhere of that man.
I mean,
but yet we see George Floyd, who
George
held a pregnant woman for drugs, who's robbed, who beat up people. That, I mean, but there's nothing. There's no MLK. I have never seen one.
No, because when you have a man who stands for peace, the elite do not want that. They do not want us coming
smart
together.
people will then become in control.
That's it. And he said it beautifully. Okay, so finally, this one it blows my mind. We know that, right? I think today they were talking about the Supreme Court decision on Roe v. Wade, or on whether states have the right to determine whether you can have an abortion or not, and that it should be left to the states. It's coming out either today, if it hasn't already, or it's coming out soon. But here is the face. This is Roe. Okay, this was the woman who was Jane Roe. Her name is Norma McCorvey, aka Jane Roe, who became the poster child for the pro-choice movement. But then she changed her mind and said that, and she never got the abortion, and she changed her mind and she got baptized. She became a Christian, and she was opposing choice. Well, on her deathbed, she made a confession, and they made a video. They made a series out of it, or a documentary out of it. And she said that she was paid to change her position. Watch this and tell me, is this how can we believe anything when this actually happened? Watch.
As long as she was Jane Roe, the anonymous plaintiff in the landmark Roe v. Wade abortion rights case before the Supreme Court, she was a perfect symbol of the pro-choice movement. That's the way it usually is with symbols and icons and poster people. To a certain extent, the less we know about them, the better. The minute that Jane Roe emerged from anonymity in 1984 and revealed herself to be Norma McCorvey, the symbol developed complications. She was, it turned out, a drug addict and dealer, an alcoholic. She had dabbled in the occult. She is a lesbian. While she became a proponent of a woman's right to an abortion, and while she would work for several abortion clinics, Norma McCorvey clearly bridled at the feeling that the pro-choice movement's leadership was keeping her at arm's length.
Norma McCorvey became the emblem of the movement.
So she's here today coming out of hiding for this, and we appreciate her courage, don't we?
I used to have women that used to come up to me all the time and they'd say, oh Norma, I want to thank you. You know, if it hadn't been for you, I wouldn't have finished college, or if it hadn't been for you, I wouldn't have done this. You know, and I used to look at them and I would envy them because they got to choose. They had the right to choose. And I never had the right to choose.
And Norma McCorvey never had an abortion.
How do you feel about the notion of abortion now, a woman's right to choose?
Well, for years and years, I used to think that it was a woman's right to choose, period. But after working in 4 abortion clinics here in the Dallas area and learning a lot more, I started having inner conflicts with myself, Ted, and I really got extremely depressed when women would call into the clinics and want to make appointments for second trimester abortions.
You realize that over the years, I mean, first anonymously, when you were just known as Jane Roe, and then later on, you became, certainly for some people, not all, but for some people, you became something of a symbol of a woman's right to choose. You must have given a great deal of thought over these last few weeks and months about the impact that you're going to have on the movement itself. Do you care?
I don't think that the movement is the issue here. I believe, Ted, that the issue here is that I have found a spiritual path that is concrete and with Jesus Christ, and I feel very comfortable with that.
Did they use you as a trophy?
Of course. I was the big fish. You know, I took their money and they put me out in front of the cameras and told me what to say.
Give me an example of what you'd say.
We've gathered here today to pay homage to the children that are being aborted in this abortuary. We're doing this because abortion is wrong. And I, as the former Jane Roe of Roe versus Wade, do regret signing the affidavit for the pro-abortion camps. That was probably about it.
It was all an act.
Yeah. I did it well, too. I am a good actress. Of course, I'm not acting now.
Hold on, I'm sewing my pussy hat.
Your pussy's the wrong color. It's supposed to
That's
be racist. Gloria Johnson, oh sweet Jesus. Angela Ricca, great video research. That's right. And that's what you'll always get with this show. We're going to show you everything and let you decide. But
all four of you.
But the biggest takeaway here is marketing. They were marketing. They found someone that needed money. They paid her. They pushed her to be the Jane Roe, and then the other side pushed her to be against abortion, and then FX paid her to admit that she was lying all the time. So what kind of history are we going to be teaching our kids? What history are the researchers going to find? Are they going to find that? Or are they going to just show either side, the side that they want? And what I loved was in those early interviews, they were setting her up, right? They're a drug addict, a lesbian. Oh my God, she was a drug addict, a lesbian, this or that. You know, they were trying to mar her because she was changing her point of view. Ladies and gentlemen, we're being played. We're being played. And if we don't, as Americans, as parents, tell our kids what our history is, and if we don't pay better attention to what they're force feeding us, we're going to be subservient to China. We are going to be subservient to other nations that want to destroy America. Go ahead, Jen. Thank you.
I can't. Forget it.
Well, whatever history researchers come up with, I sure hope they remember this.
Hey now.
He said, I lost my balance. Yeah, no shit. You were standing, though.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Our economy just...
The man who got more votes than any American president in history. That is it. Francine says, perfect way to end this. It was Trump's fault he fell. That's right, Francine. It was Trump's fault he fell. Jennifer, I give you the last word. What do you have to say?
Yeah, I said it already.
All right. Well, listen, everybody, do your research. Make sure that you don't let your kids get force-fed bullshit. And I don't care if they're 2 or 22. You got to stay on top of them. Good night to Gloria. And Lucille says, first learn to walk. All right. It's a great show. I know that I think the internet was going in and out. I hope you had a good
was.
Yeah, mine was. I'm sorry.
Sorry, you gave everyone a little bit of a break.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry about that. Okay, everybody. Well, have a great night. We'll see you next week, and I'll try and do something about my internet.